So here I'm just removing the tension on the chain, putting the derailleur clutch in place to remove the chain to start taking this bike apart. Next I removed the pedals. Next step was to remove the crank bolts from the crank arms. Next we removed the bike off the stand because we had to put the chain whip on and it needed a lot of pressure to remove that front sprocket.
Oh, yes.
Nice. Nice.
Dude, yeah.
Sometimes that retaining screw, it's a reverse thread to get that sprocket off. It is insane tight. So this came off fairly easy, went pretty well. Now with the sprocket removed and the crank arms off the bike, it was time to start removing that motor. Bafang m620. Look at all that grease. Time for some of this. All right, we'll take it apart, check the gears, and throw a bunch of this good stuff in there. So this is your main rotor right here, and this guy bought a replacement for it because it was, typically that's what makes that loud whining noise, but it didn't need it, but we did replace this main gear, and this is it right here. So these just lift out all together.
Yeah.
And there's your main gear. So right here, check this out. This is where your pawls are at.
That's the biggie.
Yeah. See, look at that.
Yeah, look at that.
Same design. So that's the thing that the clip broke and these weren't retracting or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't, that's what engages your pedals. Those pawls right there. So this part's $15 if you ever lose pedaling.
Okay.
It's probably that. You can tell if you disconnect your chain and try spinning it.
Yeah.
That way you know it's not your hub, you know. But I've only seen one bike do that where these get jacked up. So look at all that grease. Wow.
Dude, that's nuts.
That's so crazy. That is it. Way under greased. These don't even have grease on them.
Nope.
Look at that. Very minimal. Ooh.
You can smell them.
Yeah. That gear, that's your main. Might as well change it, I guess, dude. It doesn't look worn though. It's up to you. What do you want to?
Nothing should really be worn, you know. If
Yeah.
it's not worn out, let's just re-grease everything.
Okay.
Because
Let's check everything out. Yeah, we'll clean it up. They say, I don't know, but they say you don't want to mix
greases, yeah, exactly. I've heard that a couple times.
These gloves suck.
That was.
So after taking a look inside at the main rotor, we decided that it did not need replacing. It had no wear at all. The main gear did have a little bit of a burnt, rusty, you know, texture to it. And it actually wasn't worn, but we had the gear in hand, so we're like, let's just replace it, and then we'll put some fresh Cornhead John Deere grease in here and just let it go and see what it would do. And it turned out fine. So, what's up, dude? Oh, this is Dave. There's another. I forgot about him. He's got rock stars too. He's got all the Sondors, every single line. This is Chris,
Hey, how are you?
another Rockstar guy.
Yeah, a couple rock stars on there.
He's got the gray one
Look at that.
with the red.
Oh, I've seen the gray one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with the
that's a
red
nice
lyric.
one.
The red hat
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's sick. We built all that in here too.
Oh, that's
Put the
awesome.
Saint brakes on it. Yeah, so.
My motor makes noise when it gets warm, and now I
Brand
realize
new. Look at all the grease. I barely wiped, dude. This is all the grease I wiped out of it. That's it. Look at
there's
that.
almost no grease in it.
Brand new motor.
That's one thing we haven't done to mine.
I know. Yours has not been noisy.
It's got about 800 miles on it.
And his has been fine.
Dude, hell.
So, I'm like, so instead of grease, I'm going to put that oil on these. Because the grease is what makes these stick.
Okay,
Oh,
for sure.
Fans, yeah.
So, yeah, you put the oil on there. I got an oil just for Paul.
Okay,
so-
perfect. Yeah. And then before this, I had a Luna X2 with the ludicrous motor.
How'd you like that?
So-
Oh, you said you had a lot of problems, right?
Oh, every problem you can imagine. It just
Because I like that bike,
it
honestly.
mine kept breaking down. I know other people had different experiences, but the first day I had it, I rode it, and the motor turned itself off 5 times. Just going down the street like this. Just get money.
All right, so these are the gears going back in. I coated the teeth, with a ton, not a ton, but a good amount of the John Deere cornhead grease. Each set of gears, I coated pretty heavily. And then on the bottom and on the walls, you can see right here, I'm applying just a little bit extra just so it has some grease to pick up, once it warms up. And then I'm taking a razor blade, just making sure everything, when the motor goes back together, really clean. You don't want any contamination in between those two. When they mate together, the seal was good. You have your dowel pins that need to meet up and mesh together. You'll see them right there in that view. I'm pointing at it right there. So yeah, those dowel pins. Make sure everything lines up correctly. No wires are being pinched in this process. Surfaces are clean, the mating surfaces. The seal is good. Here's a look at everything pushed together just by hand. Nice and firm, making sure everything lines up, no wires are pinched before I apply the blue Loctite to the screws to seal everything together. And blue Loctite on every screw on the motor casing. So everything stays nice and snug and tight and never comes loose. Look at that. Oh. Gears are meshing.
You gotta keep that in the video. Oh.
Ah, yeah. Oh, baby. Battery. All right, ready to go back in?
I'm watching you struggle because you can't get them
Yeah.
back to start. At least you can put both pressure because it looks like it's a hard ring.
There we go. Ready?
Beauty.
Bam. There it is. So nothing comes greased on this bike from factory, so I'm putting some grease on the motor mounting bolts just to make it easier to reapply. And everything goes back on the way it came off, putting the cranks on. Those crank bolts that hold the cranks on got to be 40 plus Newton meters. And be generous with that blue Loctite because they do have a tendency to come loose. I've never had a problem with it, but others have. So make sure you crank those bad boys down with some blue Loctite. Here goes the sprocket back on. Make sure it's on there all the way flush. Your retaining bolt or ring, whatever you want to call it, is a reverse thread. Be generous with your blue Loctite and snug that thing down. You don't have to go too crazy with it, but make sure it is on, look at that. It's a reverse thread. You can see I'm turning it left to tighten it. And yeah, make sure that thing's on pretty damn tight. There you go. Once again, the other side, blue Loctite on that crank arm. Don't be, stingy with it. Those got to be on 40 plus Newton meters. And if you use blue Loctite, put a lot of pressure on it, should be good to go. And for the pedals, never seize on the threads because, pedals are threaded on. They're pretty much self-tightening the direction that they go. One is an opposite thread on the left side, I believe. So use some never sees on it, and when you take them off, it should come off pretty fairly easy. Yeah, power, moment of truth. Yes, sweet. All right, does it work? Try that throttle. Nice. Cool. Pretty quiet. I don't know how it sounded before. We should have videoed that, but
Pretty normal.
yep. Is it quieter than it was?
Feels good.
Okay. What about the noise?
Sounds good.
Okay. So immediately after we reconditioned this motor, put the corn head grease treatment into it, we also removed the throttle from the bike and we disconnected the brake cutoff sensors that stop the motor as you apply the brakes. It's just a couple of features this rider did not want. I totally prefer it that way. So then we took off to Los Robles open space, rode about 7 miles just to test everything out, and everything worked flawlessly. Good time meeting this guy. He's part of our Rockstar Rebel Riders group, Jumpy McJumpster Jr. or Senior, sorry. If you're on that group, check us out. Facebook, Rockstar Rebel Riders. Great guy. Stoked to meet him. And it's cool, you know, connecting with fellow followers and enthusiasts of the e-bike community. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay stoked and have a good night.